worst thing that could happen is that you could get dropped. So now that we have that answer out of the way, go ride your bike. Go ride whatever category that you want to ride. And then, hey, we'll see what happens.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Cycling with Almost Elite. And today we're joined by an actual elite, and we'll be talking about racing in the elite category. Welcome, Rocky. And for those who don't know you, man, tell us a bit more about yourself and who do you ride for?
Yeah, man. Elite. I'm first of all, I'm a recent elite, but I raced the pro category. My name is Rocky. For those that don't know me, if you want my petty name, it's Letsogonolo. There's the surname, and Rocky is my actual name, spelled with an EY. Professionally, I'm in supply chain, logistics. Do different solutions for people that do various types of movements in maritime and shipping and everything else. And then, as a hobby, I'm a musician, and then as well as a cyclist.
Musician. That's interesting.
So I'm actually a drummer.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, it's just I like making a lot of noise. It's fine.
So now,
just
more on the.
And then
on the cycling side, what type of rider would you classify yourself as? Endurance, climber, sprinter? And maybe tell us also about some of the riders that you look up to, amongst your peers, in your team, and maybe also some of the pros.
Yeah, no, I ride for Vugani Cycling Club. They are basically maybe just actually a brief history. So I started cycling in I got a bike late December 2018, and then joined Vugani, started riding with them from 2019, did my first Dis-Chem fast, it wasn't Dis-Chem, it was fast one. January 2019, that was my first race. Wasn't that bad. It was the first time I sat on the saddle for a full duration of a race. No stopping. That was weird and it was painful. But anyway, in terms of a category, in terms of how do I classify myself as a rider? So I would first of all probably call myself a climber. I'm pretty reasonably good at climbing. I think that was actually one of the base launches into with the guys that I ride with. They primarily describe me as a climber. But I think of recent, probably in the past year, actually since COVID, I'd probably now also I do have a tendency to have quite a punchy sprint. In me, so to say. I'm not the best, but I can take on some of the guys a bit, And then in terms of the guys that I look up to, the almost elites,
Here we go.
We are small boys.
I got that. No, but I think domestically, so I train a lot with the guys. It's primarily made up of Vugani guys. Some very, very strong riders. Super, super strong riders, and they. But locally, some of the guys I actually do look up to, would be a person like a Brandon Downs. He's a former 94.7 race winner. One of the guys that actually fascinates me in terms of his riding and in terms of how long he's been riding is also a Nolan. I think the fact that he's a sprinter who has a bit of a tendency to challenge climbers really fascinates me about him. Then one of my most favorite riders will definitely be a David Murray. Quite aggressive. He just leaves everything on the floor. It's like it's an all or nothing kind of rider, Then internationally, one of the guys I especially like his persona on the bike would be an Alaphilippe. For me, Alaphilippe is a legend. That guy can just ride a bike, And then of course, and maybe a lot of people disagree with me. One of my all-time heroes will definitely be Peter Sagan. I'm a Sagan fan, and if you don't like it, then let's meet on the tarmac, okay? That's basically that'll basically be me. I think just in terms of profiling, in terms of just some of the guys that I look up to.
Okay, then, man. I mean, Tell us how much time do you spend on the bike on a daily, weekly basis for you to become at the level that you're at the moment?
No, so I do. So I'd say in general, my program will consist of a minimum of about 10 hours minimum, but in general, it ranges between about 12 to sometimes 13 hours. And that's primarily, I think, also linked to the fact that I train when I do go train, I ride from my house. We normally meet with the guys a bit of a distance. It's about 10 Ks for me to get to where we start. So it's a nice warm up for me. So it normally just extends my hours slightly a bit more. Because we believe, I guess we love bikes so much. We believe that we need to ride everywhere, so we just ride bikes everywhere. So yeah, but I mean, in general, I'm generally doing around about that those amount of hours. If not, then also there are times where I do extend it a bit depending on what kind of race I'd be doing. So if you'll be trying maybe to prepare for like a Maluti, for example, 180 full gas time trial, you generally need to find yourself maybe just extending a bit of your base, which would be your zone 2 or your L2 rides. Extend them slightly a bit more, from like a 3-hour endurance recovery, maybe to about 4 hours. And then maybe, I'd say maybe closer a month before, I'll sometimes extend it to maybe do a nice 5-hour ride just to stretch the system with one break. And then do a bit of fasted riding as well, just so that you're using more of your own body fat. You actually, or rather, you're feeding from your own system instead of actually supplementing from food. Consult your professional first before.
Listen, we've got Dr. Rocky here.
Recommended that you ride hungry. Next thing you're thinking. No? Consult your people, okay?
I must say, Rocky, I'm quite inspired by how much you've achieved. I mean, I'm shocked that you only started in 2018. Looking at how you ride, somebody could swear you've been riding for many, many years. We're very much interested in the transition from, moving from that space of being an alphabet rider, AL, BL, and into the vet space. Tell us a bit more about that transition. How did you know you were ready to move into that space? And, how are your confidence levels and how was it, landing in that space and perhaps your first ride?
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to, the story might be slightly long, but I mean, the long and short of it, I believe in swimming in the deep end. That's the first thing. And then it worked to my luck, or it worked to my advantage that I joined the club that I did, which was Vugani. So if you need any baptism by fire, Vugani is the place to be. They'll just baptize you, throw you in the deep end. Whew, that's that, So that's that. So I mean, in terms of transition, I think the first thing, if people want to ride fast, it all goes with the people that you surround yourself with. So you say, I mean, you mentioned the fact that I had a short transition, and for me, it doesn't feel short, but for a lot of people, they describe it as short, But when I do a bit of self-introspection, I really cannot take any form of glory for it, Yes, I put in the work, I put in the training, but majority of it was actually based on the people that I was hanging out with, So the guys, if I were to mention a couple of names, people like Shoes, Philip Modao, Sfiso, Peter Mafuru, Tebo Hosku, those guys that I basically was, that I was just surrounded with. What they did was that they threw me as well into the deep end, and almost challenged me. So one of the things actually that they did was, when there was the Cycle 100 challenge, I happened to find myself being seated with C, or was it B? I can't remember, but I think it was B. No, it was BL that we were seated with. And can I tell you that the support of having teammates that all basically rallied around because they wanted me to actually go to AL. So they wanted my seating to basically go up. They all came. I mean, everybody dropped. Some guys dropped from A, came down to B. Some of the guys, found themselves a lot in the B. But the mission was, we want you to basically finish in the top 10, so that your seating for the next race can basically be AL. And I think the next race was then what do you call the Sun City, the ride for cancer. And I found myself riding A, and I was scared. Yeah, I was like, what's going on here? And then I found myself riding in that particular category. But but like I said, I mean, the beginning, I said that it actually goes more with, what you want. If you really want to ride in those kind of categories, it just takes a bit of courage. And then a lot of guys say, yeah, but it's too hard. I'm going to get dropped. So, and that's exactly what you need to be asking yourself. What's the worst thing that could really happen in that particular thing? The worst thing that could happen is that you could get dropped. So now that you know that you can get dropped, go ride, because go ride it. Because at the end of the day, what we sometimes do is that I think we put our fears more forward than the experiences that we could have, So, I mean, yes, that A race was hectic. I mean, the guys from then, what was called Office Group, they brought in all the youngsters and all their vets in that group. They were attacking for that entire duration of that race. I was basically hanging on by a thread, but I mean, I finished the race quite well, I finished the race quite well. But then now, just moving now into the transition of licensed riding. Licensed riding, again, it just goes with who are you surrounding yourself with, I just basically the guys basically ended up saying, listen, man, you can't be wasting your time training so hard and just, having all of this energy to ride and not go licensed. Just take it to the license, come to the license category. And some of the guys, they helped me, they guided me. At the time I was using a 50 compact group set. They said, listen, probably you'd need to change from a 50, move to a 52, so that you'll be able to handle that kind of crowd, because, the pros, they descend with power, they actually descend, actually pedaling, with a lot of power. So, to avoid spinning out, they gave me so much advice. At the time, I didn't even have a Garmin computer. They said, invest in this, invest in a power meter, invest in a couple of things that are going to help aid you to race in those things. Not that you have to have those things to race there. It's not a prerequisite. There's a lot of guys that race without these fancy garments and all that stuff. And they're still quite good. Like they're actually monsters in their riding. Yeah. And then after that, I just took the transition. Then after that, all I did was the one December that we spent doing a lot of base training. We did a lot of base training, hard training. Then I just figured, man, let me just take the plunge. Come that January, when I was supposed to do my CSA license, I also just said, no, let me buy my license. And then I did my first race. And then that was it. And I can tell you this, once you've tasted that thing, once you've tasted that thing, it's hard to go back. You know what, you live, it's exhilarating. Yes, you're nervous at the start. You don't know what to expect. You see these guys who've been riding this bunch for like a long time, and they're big guys, fit guys as well, and the amount of power they're able to push through the bike is it's outstanding. It's like, my word, but then I remember when I think after my second race, I then consulted with my coach and I said, hey man, like, I don't know if I can actually sustain being in this kind of a bunch. And, he basically used something that always resonates with me. He said, don't forget that these guys, they're not better than you. They're just slightly more experienced than you. It's like being in a job, Some guys, you get there, they already know the ins and outs, what to do, what not to do, But the fact that you've taken that courageous step to be like, no, I'm stepping up to this, it means you belong there. And all you need to be doing is just gaining more experience, obviously training, getting stronger, so that you can actually eventually start to race with them. Because there is a fundamental difference between riding.
I hear you, Rocky. And on that note about the coach, tell us how important is that? Would you say you strongly recommend having a coach to help you transition, or would you say you could be self-sufficient with the support structure you had, the likes of your peers that you are riding with? Tell us about the importance of the coach in this transition.
So for me, I'm a strong believer in structured training. One of the primary reasons why I am where I am was that I was hanging around guys that were being coached. It's as simple as that, and you could see a fundamental difference in the fact that when you get a coach, one of the things that it eliminates from you or for you is the factor of you having to really put in more work or more stress in actually thinking about what you need to do to prepare for a certain milestone or a certain goal. What a coach does is he has you're giving him the you're giving him the privilege of actually sitting down on a chair from a top view angle, and actually he has that opportunity to direct you according to the goals that you want. For me, a coach is quite fundamental if you can afford it. In some cases, if you can't get a coach or you're not being coached, what I would say is follow guys that you can see are riding extremely strong. Stick with those people. Chances are, if you do land on guys that are willing to give a lot of information, because I also do notice that in some cases people are very stingy with information. Information is not necessarily hard to come by, and when it does come by, it's these guys who are giving you these long roads that you need to take to get to a certain point, when in actual fact there's some shortcuts that you can actually take to get to a certain place, you know. So for me getting coached is quite key. It was quite key in my transition, and it's always good to have someone who keeps you accountable, because if you don't have anybody that you're accountable to, then you're a law unto yourself. You know, on some days you can cheat and be like, let me take it easy. You know, I don't really need to. But if there's a program that you need to be following, and you can see that, no, I'm actually slacking because I missed my week's training this week, you know, then you need to consult with your coach. Coach, how can I catch up? What can you do for me to actually feed back into the system? But also, it helps you with your failures, because what a coach does is that he's able to give you a guidepost. And in some cases, you do know that you're not necessarily following. So like myself, and I'll use myself as an example, you know, in some cases where I haven't followed a program to the T, and then I find myself, you know, you get to a ride or you get to a race, and some other guys come and they expose a certain aspect that your coach was trying to address. You know, then having a coach is that benefit of when you do fail, you have somebody that can say, hey, don't forget that this was actually meant to address this particular aspect. Yeah. So coaching is quite key.
Thanks for that, Rocky. And, you know, speaking of structured training, you know, it can be very difficult sometimes to follow a structured program when you ride with the guys. You know, for instance, you meet up with a group of guys and they just, you know, you sometimes succumb to whatever they're doing on the day. How do you find a way to stick to that structure? Do you perhaps focus more on indoor, or do you go off on a ride alone? You know, how do you balance riding with the guys safely, but at the same time trying to structure, making sure you put in those intervals, or making sure that you put in specific times on the various zones?
Yeah, that's a sensitive question, because then it can be easy that guys will be like, I know my program work thinks is better than all of us. No, so for me personally, I think the most important aspect is communication. So if you do build a rapport with guys that you ride with, you know, and you basically tell them, listen, I got a coach, and it's for this and these reasons. If you're hanging out with those kind of people, then it generally means that it's a crowd that you want around you. You know, you want their influence. So I would presume that they would be understanding of it, you know. So in some cases, and hence I say communication is a very important variable. I think communicating, first of all, with your coach that you're riding with other people is very key. Once you do that, if you can communicate it with your coach, I would presume that your coach would ask, okay, so how generally, how do these guys ride? You know, what's their format of riding in a week? You know, you can tell them, they go full gas on this day, they rest, or they just go full gas all the time. And if that be the case, then it's a matter of assessing the situation. And the coach will also give you an advice to say, okay, for this duration of intervals, for example, so let's take maybe you guys are doing Tabata intervals, or you have a Tabata interval that is due to you for you to do. You know, maybe the coach will say, listen, I need you to focus on these particular numbers. Maybe for this particular ride, maybe do it indoor, your intervals, you know, do your intervals indoor, and then go out on your recovery days, go out and ride with the guys. You know, I see a lot of guys who are pro riding in that kind of way. I see a lot of guys who ride pro, they do that. You know, they do primarily indoor on their interval days, and then they go ride out with the other guys on one day. Or they'll do their indoor intervals, and then they'll have 2 weeks where maybe their coach says, go ride full gas with a group. So basically you guys must just go full gas and just gas yourselves out. Where some guys do that as well. And then, but then to the aspect of linking it to the group, my advice also would be there's a lot of ways you can work around that particular one. So in some cases, you can communicate with the guys that, hey guys, listen, today I'm doing a zone 3 interval. So I have 3 of them to do, and it's 10 minutes each. So I might peel off, but when I peel off, I'll find you guys at this particular, you'll find me in my recovery at this particular instance. And once you've communicated that, guys they generally will understand, you know. And And what sometimes generally will happen, I've seen it happen with us in our group, is that when someone maybe is racing and maybe the rest of us are not racing, we somehow end up joining his program to support him in his interval. In some cases, even with myself, I've gotten there and I said, hey guys, today I've got VO2 max to do, and hey, I don't think it's gonna go well, and the guys will say, no, we'll do it with you. And then on some days when they're doing their own program and maybe their intervals are longer, I'll tap off quicker because my intervals are shorter, but I'll communicate that with them. So in essence, I think the long and short of it is communication is a very good key, in that particular instance. But also use a buy-in system. So a buy-in system is also being able to explain what you're doing to your peers. So if maybe your peers are always going full gas, maybe it's a good thing for you to say, hey man, my coach gave me this. He gave me a VO2 max with sprints. I mean, he gave me a tempo ride with sprints in between. Let's discuss it, man. What do you think this guy is trying to address? Discuss the stuff that you're doing. Maybe gave you a soupless heels to do. Discuss what you're actually, the variation of what you're doing. But then more importantly, when you have a free ride, I think it's also beneficial for you also to be demonstrative of what you're actually practicing. And then, I mean, obviously, then the typical things like respect come into being. We have to respect each other. But the most important element in all of this, we have to have fun. So there must be an element of fun there. So obviously, cyclists, we believe in hurting each other. So in some cases, I'll tell. Sometimes we'll say to each other, "No, I'm gonna hurt you. You're not gonna hold my wheel. I am going to hurt you." And then we bring out the element of saying, snap, okay, this is what's happening. And generally, I mean, we've seen guys come and join us, even though sometimes we're running different programs. We generally have a base program as a group that we follow. We have a base program that we've all followed, even though some of the guys are individually coached. And what we've actually seen is that we've had guys who come in with zero fitness. But I can assure you now, if you try and sit on those people's wheels right now, it's like
close to impossible. Yeah. You'd go for it, man. I'm sure you got a lot to ask the men.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I think that's a lot of good information that you've given in terms of training and all that. What advice would you give myself, who's almost elite and who's wanting to be in elite?
Listen to this guy, dude. You're talking. How can you ask such a question when you're such a beast of a rider?
No.
But I mean, in essence, right? And I say this with the utmost of humbleness. I wouldn't say I'm the best rider in the world. I think a lot of people maybe categorize me that way. I don't necessarily categorize my way.
You're a heavy hitter, Rocky. You're a heavy hitter.
I mean, categorize myself in that way. But I think some of the things. No way. Listen. Anyway, I think one of the things that can definitely help people to basically ride extremely strong is to commit. You have to commit, but the question is, what are you committing to? It would be you have to commit to a certain goal. So I think in some cases, one of the guys that I ride with said that, we've been riding together, riding hard and everything. And sometimes, because guys sometimes maybe don't want to ride, including myself, we're like, I'm tired, man. Don't want to ride, follow programs and stuff. And then he said that maybe the issue came at the fact that we didn't ask each other that what is your ultimate goal, And it is important to define that fine line, So like you say that for a person like yourself, who has termed himself almost elite, which is you ride more than an elite, just by the way. Anyway, if you've defined that listen, I want to ride in the A category and I want to be a heavy hitter. I want to ride elites, or I want to ride whatever pro category. It doesn't really matter. Once you've defined that goal, then it's a matter of saying, okay, then how do I get there? And the best way to do that is just by identifying all the guys that are stronger. And it's just about rubbing shoulders with those people, observing their habits. So one of the things that I'm noticing about some of the guys that, like I said, guys that maybe I ride with, but even some of the guys that are consistently maybe say winning races. I'll look at people like my coach, for example, just consistently giving performance on performance on performance, that they're consistent. Without consistency, you will not survive the sport. I can guarantee you that if you're skipping your training, if you're not sleeping well, if you're not eating well, if you're not hydrating, if you have high levels of stress, funny enough, they actually do affect your performance on the bike. Those kind of things eventually do add. It's like these little things, that they add to this thing. If you're not finding out a bit more about nutrition, like what am I supposed to be doing in terms of my body, what blood type am I, what supplements will work for me, and then also then upping the ante on the bracket of where you're competing at, so generally I think we like comparing ourselves or feeling like, this time around I dropped Rook. I dropped him. No, it's working. But in actual fact, maybe you're benchmarking yourself too low without you even knowing, and that is why then it becomes important for you to actually not necessarily approach every ride with an essence of I'm going to be dropping people. The strong guys, they're generally approaching every ride with a reason. So they understand why are they waking up so early to ride. They know what will they be riding on that particular day. You'll see them, and sometimes you'll find these oaks, quiet guy, friendly with everybody, riding at the back, looking like he's not even doing anything. You're like, this guy who's on drop. I'm gonna drop this guy. Doesn't even know how to ride. Look at him. Next thing you find a guy there, he can sustain high power. For that particular day, he was doing a zone 1 ride, and he understood his mandate for that particular day. And that's the drive. That's the point that I want to drive there. That we can all be strong. We can be naturally gifted to ride. But if you don't know what you're particularly supposed to be doing or what you are doing, I can tell you for free. There's some heavy hitters out there, and they'll expose you. They'll expose you very, very quickly. And then, and I guess then it comes also into the, like you're saying, what does it take actually to also be in this particular category? I think one of the best characteristics anyway that I'm seeing from some of the guys that are very strong is that you need to have a persona that is extremely humble. You need to be almost like, you almost need to be like clay. As much as you have so much knowledge, you need to always have an ear that is ready to listen to someone else, what they have to say to you, to be like, maybe somebody could correct you about your setup without you even noticing. Someone who's not even more experienced than you, So you need to become a lot more amenable to that, because these guys take corrections of every single thing. You tell them, hey man, I think this shoe is gonna give you, is gonna make you whatever, it's gonna make you lighter on the bike, or this thing is gonna give you extra watts like this. These guys go and apply. They apply these things, and you can see that they apply these little principles, and that's how they end up, I guess, being in that particular category. So I think for me, that's generally the advice I think I'd give to anybody that wants to stay there, or rather that wants to get to that particular category, and then be brave. Like I said, like I was saying to that what's the worst thing that could happen? The worst thing that could happen is that you could get dropped. So now that we have that answer out of the way, go ride your bike. Go ride whatever category that you want to ride, and then hey, we'll see what happens.
Thanks a lot for your time, man, and I think you've really given us a lot to think about and a lot to ponder on in our sleep. Hopefully we'll have you again, man, because I'd really like to pick your brain on a little bit more things. I think you're very knowledgeable in the little time that you've been in the sport. You're very knowledgeable on what to do and what not to do. So looking forward to chatting to you again, man. And I'll see you on the bike. And I'm definitely gonna try and hold on to your wheel as much as possible.
Yeah, man. I'll see you on the bike.
All right. Thanks a lot,
Eugene. I'll try to hold on to your wheel, man.
Thank you so much, man. Thanks for chatting to us, man. We've learned quite a bit from you. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Just one last comment. You guys are doing a fantastic job with the channel, guys. Keep it up. Keep it up. Your inspiration. Not we want to get some GoPros.
Well, I'm
all right. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you next time. Cheers.